You saw the message. You read it completely, maybe twice. You understood it. You even thought of exactly what you wanted to say, and then you put the phone down. Not because you forgot, not because you were busy, but because something in you just wasn't ready. Hours passed, maybe the whole day. The message sat there, opened, read, unanswered, while you went about your life with a quiet awareness that it was still waiting for you. And the longer it waited, the harder it became to respond. There's a specific kind of person who does this. Not careless people, not rude people. Usually the opposite. Thoughtful people, observant people. People who feel things a little more deeply than most and spend more time inside their own heads than they'd ever admit out loud. If you've ever read a message, set your phone down, and returned hours later still trying to figure out how to begin, this video is going to explain something about you that you've never quite been able to explain yourself. Most people assume that replying to a message is simple. You read it, you respond, done. But for certain people, a message isn't just a message, it's an emotional event. It arrives carrying tone, expectation, energy, and before a single word is typed back, all of that has to be processed. There's the initial read, which is almost involuntary. The eyes move across the words before the mind is fully prepared to receive them. And sometimes, right there, something subtle shifts. Maybe the message is heavier than expected. Maybe the person's energy feels off. Maybe it's completely neutral and nothing is wrong, but the body still responds with a faint resistance that's hard to name. So the phone goes down, not as a decision, more like a reflex. Psychologists call this kind of response an emotional processing delay. It's not avoidance in the traditional sense. It's more like a natural cool-down period the nervous system requires before engaging socially, even digitally. For people with higher sensory sensitivity or those who experience emotions more intensely, even casual digital interaction carries a kind of invisible weight. Reading a message activates the social part of the brain immediately. It starts calculating. How does this person feel? What do they need from me? What will I say? How will they interpret my words? All of that happens within seconds of reading. And sometimes the mind, feeling slightly overwhelmed by its own calculations, quietly decides it needs more time. The phone goes face down. Life continues. The conversation waits. Here's what makes this particular pattern so quietly exhausting, not for the person receiving the message, for the person who read it and didn't reply. They're still thinking about it. 3 hours later, making coffee, they're mentally drafting a response. 6 hours in, they've had the entire conversation in their head at least twice. By the time they finally pick up the phone, they've already replied in 12 different ways. Sending the actual message almost feels anticlimactic at that point. This is called mental rehearsal, and it's far more common than most people realize. It's what happens when someone's internal world moves significantly faster than their social world. The conversation is already happening, just privately, in the quiet space behind the eyes, where no one else can see it. But there's another layer to this. For some people, replying isn't just about finding the right words, it's about having the right energy. And energy, unlike time, can't be scheduled. There are moments when a message arrives and everything inside feels slightly flat. Not sad exactly, not tired exactly, just low. And the idea of performing warmth or presence or enthusiasm, even through a screen, even in a text, feels like putting on a costume you don't quite fit into right now. So the message waits, not because the person doesn't care, often because they care too much to reply badly. They'd rather take the time to show up genuinely than respond quickly and feel hollow doing it. There's a kind of emotional perfectionism buried in the delayed reply, a quiet standard that says, if I'm going to be present for someone, I want to actually be present, not a version of myself that's performing presence. That's not selfish, but it's also not entirely simple. The people who do this are often the same people who never send a short, careless response. When they finally reply, it's usually considered, warm, specific. They remembered something you said 3 weeks ago. They answered the thing you asked and the thing you didn't. Because while they were silent, they were paying attention. The delayed reply isn't indifference. It's often the opposite. It's the behavior of someone who takes communication seriously enough to wait until they can do it right. But the problem is that the person on the other end doesn't know any of this. They just see the red notification. This is where it becomes complicated, because a red notification with no reply carries its own message, even when that message was never intended. The other person starts interpreting the silence. They wonder what they said. They replay the conversation looking for the moment things went wrong. They might feel dismissed, or insignificant, or anxious in a way they can't quite explain. And the person who's still carefully processing the message has no idea any of this is happening. This is one of the quieter disconnects of modern communication. Two people, both thoughtful, both caring, one waiting until they can respond honestly, the other weeding the delay as absence, missing each other completely, not through cruelty, but through the difference in how they experience emotion and time. There's something else worth saying. Not every delayed reply is about depth or sensitivity. Some of it, and this is the uncomfortable part, is control. Replying immediately can feel exposing. It signals that you were waiting, that the message mattered immediately, that you're available. And for people who've been hurt by availability in the past, people who've learned, maybe early, that being too reachable leads to being taken for granted, the pause becomes protective. It's not calculated. It doesn't feel like a game. But underneath the delay, sometimes is a quiet attempt to feel less vulnerable, to seem a little less eager, to maintain some emotional distance in a world where closeness has sometimes felt unsafe. The phone stays face down not because the message doesn't matter, but because it matters a little too much, and that's the thing that can't be shown yet. This is worth sitting with, because the same behavior can come from completely different places. One person delays a reply because they're emotionally overwhelmed. Another delays because they're emotionally guarded. Another delays because they're genuinely absorbed in something, and the social world genuinely faded for a few hours. From the outside, they all look identical, but from the inside, they're completely different experiences. That's the thing about human behavior that gets lost in simple explanations. A single action almost never has a single meaning. If this video has described something you recognize in yourself, there's one thing worth considering quietly. The people you care about can't see inside your processing. They can't feel your genuine warmth behind a red notification. They can't know that the silence is actually full of thought rather than emptiness. Sometimes the most honest thing isn't the perfectly crafted reply. Sometimes it's the slightly imperfect one that arrives before you're completely ready. Because the people who matter to you aren't grading your messages. They're just wondering if you're still there. If this video felt strangely accurate, subscribe to Psych Mode for more psychology that explains the hidden patterns behind how people really think, feel, and behave. Some people don't reply slowly because they don't care. They reply slowly because they're still deciding how much of themselves to give, and they've never quite figured out how to explain that.